Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.6. Okay, and of course we're playing as Germany here. Too fast. Slow it down just a little bit. Okay, Italy. Give them money for crude oil. Teeny bit, okay. We give them fuel, sure. Energy. What's sucking up our energy? Are we selling too much of it, probably? Okay, Secretary of Public Information, but I'm still thinking about this. -20. Okay, well, we're trying to sell as much energy as possible, so -20. So I'm looking for, well, Sweden, but we like, well, we don't really care about Spanish Republic because they're gonna go bye-bye eventually. And New Zealand, nice to sell it out there, but I think we'll cancel that. And Secretary of Public Information Education, advances, leadership. That's nice, so... Now, where we're still in 36, of course. There we go. So now we're at +5. We need to build up more reserves. Hard black ice is taken away 10%. %15 on fuel. That'll make a difference. Okay, new industrial zones. Right, and of course, even they're minor, 1%, but you get a bunch of them. They start adding up. Okay, so, but we want the new industrial zones because we want the IC efficiencies. Okay. Need to cancel another one. Greece, it's not that much money really, of course. But there we go. Okay, and Soviet Union. Yeah, we'll give them some fuel for a little bit of money. Okay, giant infrastructure projects advanced. Very good. Sometimes I push some technology ahead, and doing a 37 technology now isn't that bad of a thing, but I don't know if it's bad of a thing at all, but I'm looking at trying to, if you will, ride the waves of efficiency here. I'm battling up from keeping all those battle commanders, so we have a lot of leadership going to officers right now. And yeah, I know about these, but I'm trying for things that are broadly useful to some degree. Once we roll over into 37, there's going to be a lot of text to research. Air systems, avionics, not really in 36. Just don't even, I'm doing a little research there, but I don't know how useful. Where we're going to really... Let's do assault gliders just to do them. So I was watching a bit of another YouTuber playing basically this sort of install recently. Recent install of this, I was actually watching it just a few hours before starting this episode a little bit, and he was putting up some long episodes, but I was sort of skipping, advancing to where the events were, and I was very interested to watch his reaction to Third Reich events, to the events that I made, and what his sort of comments on them. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I was quite pleased. Okay. Let's see. Cruiser Blucher. Lay down. We'll lose a little bit of metal. Not that we hardly have any. And now, some of this, the reason this is so low is, some of the reason, not all, because it's for sure not just my events, but is some of the events that I have put up and to sort of dig into it. To Now I'm giving you my philosophy, and I figured that's some of the reason why you're watching the episodes, is when you play the game you sort of understand why I'm doing things. Coal for Germany, at least at this time period, was to some degree a bottomless pit. They knew where a lot of the coal, this is my understanding, I could be wrong, but they knew where all the coal reserves were, and it was just how much men and infrastructure they wanted to devote to digging it out, because if it just sitting there didn't harm anything, and there was different types of coal that they could dig out, and so that was to some degree whatever, it really didn't matter. But which we don't do too well in this game is how much men do they want to put in. You don't get 80-year-olds down in the coal mines digging coal. You might have, I mean, that's obviously sort of extreme, but let's just say 60-year-olds, and people live longer and more healthier lives. 60-year-olds down in the coal mines digging coal. You might have a few old guys that are sort of the mentors or the line bosses or something, that because they've been down there for 40 years and know the job super well. But as vast numbers of labor, you don't get that. And although I have seen one or two photographs of women in Japan digging coal sort of late in the Japanese War, you don't really normally have any women down there. I mean, that is a rare thing. I don't know, maybe the Soviet Union, I don't know. But large numbers of women weren't used. So you're to some degree competing with, and some of it, at least just in manpower sense, can be low-skilled people. They'll get skills as they go along. You don't need, and I mean that by, you don't need highly technical tradespeople or highly technical, like engineers that, long-term education to dig coal. So it's sort of the same people that you're competing with for the army. We just don't do that well with Hearts of Iron competing there. But what Germany did face constantly during this period, which isn't done so well here either, is steel. They needed the steel. Now, Hearts of Iron 4, they've converted a bunch of the steel to tungsten because, yes, for some of the tungsten use, and again, somebody who knows metallurgy better than I can correct if they want to, but some of the a significant element of the tungsten use was to be blended with steel for harder armor alloys and gun barrels and similar things like that. Well, the steel coming out of this up in here and coming out through Narvik, so it was Swedish, but you could get it out in Narvik in winter, was very high quality steel that I don't know if it already had some tungsten in it or just other natural properties, served the same function. So they sort of, to alleviate the situation of how to expand or contract steel factories, as just sort of have it as a standard, and to have Germany want to have Swedish steel, they sort of converted it to tungsten, and in my opinion a little bit over required the use of tungsten in some processes. A lot of the tungsten that was used sort of purely at the time was for machine tool bits, the cutting parts in the machine tool against, use tungsten to cut steel. Now, I know to some degree you can make the cutting bits or the drill bits, part of it good high quality steel with the actual cutting tip tungsten and all that, but I don't know how well all that works together in the technology at the time. But so that and drill bits and machining bits, because some are various cutting things other than that, wear out as you use them. So it's not just you get 500 bits, you can use them. You wear them out, so you need constant incoming. So this is sort of some of the stuff that I've done in a few events, maybe overdone it, but at the time when I was doing it, there weren't a lot of other submodders or even black ice cutting into the steel use. So it was to make steel, not maybe, you know, this is pretty heavy hit here, and I'm sort of looking at this now, but it was to make it so you just, it's something you have to think about and consider. Okay, we can lay down and keel the Blucher cruiser, or no need. We're going to do that. Kill what little metal we have here, and it's going to go down the bottom. Not even started, but we'll get there. I really love the idea that shipyards are separate. First show trials in Moscow, yay. Okay, that's good. Our blueprints are stolen. We've started looking to steal British blueprints. If you send a bunch of spies to steal blueprints in a country that is equal to or less quality of research that you have, you won't steal anything. So you try to find somebody to steal from who has better. That's why I'm stealing from Britain. Hopefully they have better technologies in like naval. Okay, we'll no longer receive money for energy, but we sort of need the energy. Okay, entertainment. So now we will lose the money up there from earlier, and we'll get a benefit there. We don't want to click on it and see why that is, because that effect happened to us and they have to recalculate. Okay, 3 continents in the day. This is Ellie Beinhorn, and so she flew from Germany to Hungary to what that flag is that? Damascus, yeah, Syria. That Syrian flag to Egypt, and so from the and then eventually back to Germany from Egypt. But she takes off in one day from Hungary, lands in, which is in Europe, lands in Syria, which is in Asia, then flies and lands in Egypt in a 24-hour period, touching on 3 continents in the day. So that's sort of one of her claims to fame. Kokazit, we're now looking at the Summer Olympics. We'll gain some money from sponsorship. Now I want to well, they don't have any money. How interesting. Guess they're still under big bad effects. Okay, let's see if we can sell supplies. How much deficit money? Okay, not much, but we'll go with that. Oh, well, I pushed too far. Okay, well, now of course we're readjusted with that. Okay, so now we've lost small entertainment shows and gone to regular entertainment shows, which we also get us a little more money, which will help us out of that little deficit we were just trying to do. Italy annexes Abyssinia. Took them long enough to win that war. They've conquered that. The Spanish Civil War. Okay. Bernard Rossamer and Ellie Beinhorn marry. He is a very famous race car driver at the time. Actually, also a member of the just regular SS. And so they're sort of the sporting celebrity couple. He's the race car driver, she's the pilot. So big sort of news at the time. And this talks a little bit more about Lily Bainhorn and her various piloting accomplishments. Okay, let's see, 50-50 chance on that, 50-50 supplies, money. In past times I've just edited this whole series of stuff out. I know I can do never, but it just hits you with that penalty there. And since you normally play with this going on here, that's why I decided to do it National Revolt Risk. Now let's go here. And Spanish Civil War interventions. So we are intervening a little bit. We would give them energy, yes. Okay, knock their Amazonin. Sort of the fun part of National Socialism here. A loathsome person, Christian Weber, SS Brigade Fuhrer Christian Weber, he is a loathsome person, but was a big partying dude. Puts on, in conjunction with the sort of the art day and the whole art celebration going on in Munich at the same time, he puts on a big sort of festival, night festival, lots of women, lots of drinking, women wearing little or no clothing in the parades, and he also is which we'll see, a horse racing fan. This horse race that will go on that. So we can do that, cost us a little bit of supplies, helps Nazi Party, or we can be the sort of, no fun group. So we're gonna cost us a minor bit of supplies to put on the parade. Okay, air bases for West Prussia as opposed to East Prussia. Yes, we'll lose that. We'll get the manpower back after construction. And just a reminder, come down here because you don't want them to readjust. You want to get them up to the top, get them through the building process. Get it all up to the top there. Okay, how are we doing for energy? Okay, we're at a massive good place. NSKK Traffic Police. The NSKK established highway patrols to help police enforce traffic regulations. Now you got to remember, at this time, which are still, I find funny, I think they still call them radio cars in New York City or whatever. A lot of police cars at this time had, no two-way radios, and they may have not even had receiving sets from a central dispatcher. If they wanted to call in, they were little sort of, in the U.S., little sort of head-high stands that were phones that you would just call into the police department. So that a police officer wanted to call in, they would, use that. Normally walking, police were normally people walking around the city, not driving around the city. So they didn't have motorized transport. So I presume for most of the police in Germany, and again I'm presuming here, I don't know, at the time, most of the police were, foot police. I'm sure every police department had its police cars, but I would be surprised if it was more than 20% of the officers, even in, 2 at a time, would be motorized within a city, driving around and have a car. It was very much a foot patrol situation. So the NSKK as a traffic police and a situation. They would be a motorized thing, and to get out on the highways, to get highway speeders, because your local police, and as we've seen through the other events, they were nationally organizing up the police departments. But that doesn't mean that there's any police out there looking on all the new autobahns to, whether it's to help a broken down car or an accident, or to give somebody a ticket. That's sort of why you lose some a little bit of popularity, because you're out there giving tickets, but you gain a little bit more net organization from more eyes everywhere. So it's that. See, and as I study all of this, it's fascinating to see and understand why things happened when they did. We started the Pioneer program to start building fortifications, but since it's not easy to like do level 1 and then do level 2 and then do level, inch it up every 6 months or every day, or well, not every day, but every little increment. It sort of comes in different sort of spurts. But why you don't go to war now and piss France off is because you have no defenses, and it takes a while. Now, of course, the Maginot Line is already built, so you're at this. Germany gets zone selection, constructing new zone. Okay, this is coming off of the new industrial zones, I believe. Technology. Yeah, we can decide not to do it, but which will give us a sort of hiding the effects from us, I believe. We will give them energy for money, yes, sure. We're again doing well and increasing it. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I've, since creating this original event, have done even more research into him, and as we've talked a little bit earlier about the church resistance movement to the Nazis. Now, he was very much in the I detailed it more and added more imagery to this over here. The Confessing Church, which is a really more resistance church, where the mainline Lutheran Church and the mainline Catholic Church definitely had resistors as part of it, definitely had at times put significant resistance towards the Nazi regime, but the Confessing Church was sort of a constant, and it's much smaller as in percentage. Look at what's going on. So this represents, we lose some popularity, gain some dissent, representing this. So yes, this is basically a not a good event for us. Okay, energy, this is covering whatever. For the Olympics, again, some of my abortive attempts to covering the Olympics, I want to do. The Summer Olympics in 1936 was a really, really big thing, and I know I've mentioned this before. The summer ones here. Like I think I've said, Charlie Chan movie series, if any of you watched the old movies, he's a Chinese-American detective out of Hawaii. He's at the Berlin Olympics and riding the Hindenburg at some point during one of his movies. And no, they didn't actually go to the Olympics to film it. They used, stock footage to do that and things, and made it in Hollywood, but made it look like he went to Germany. They very much didn't mention Nazis very much in that movie. They're just German police officials or whatever. So it was a very, very big thing as we're looking at. This is another interesting thing. They used to give out medals for other than sporting events, which I did not know this. I don't know that. I think this disappears after World War II. And it wasn't just in this Olympics, it was other previous ones. So silver medal for sculpture goes to Arnold Becker. Ostensibly, I think, for these two statues here that were part of the Olympic things, part of the stadiums. So very, very big thing. And it's no longer receiving money for that. Well, since they're no longer doing that, let's... Oh, that's right. It doesn't show up until you restart when you add a new country. Go this way and get there. Yes, okay. No, we just don't have any money. I just thought of maybe sell them a little less. Cool, maybe they don't need it anymore. Captured some resources. Ah yes, the STG, that's the best way for me to say it. Society for Marine Technology. I've looked into this, found out about this organization. It was a research institute, as I think says you can read in more detail there. And I looked at sort of some of the awards that they achieved, that they were granting out to the different people in some of the different areas. So I came up with these minor benefits. Because one thing, how do I put this? Technological research isn't a zero-sum game. It isn't, we have 500 technicians, they can all go research whatever it is we want to go research. Well, you know, the Soviets sort of tried this this way of, you know, herding around technicians and putting them in, you know, nice camps, you know, meaning they're more like campuses for the Soviet Union, but, you know, they're security to protect spies from getting in, but also to keep the technical people from getting out, but live really nice lives. That was sort of, at least some of the time, under Stalin. So, you know, and they did try that kind of stuff and try to force it. But people have natural talents. And somebody who's just interested in hydrodynamics, meaning the way water works, isn't necessarily interested or going to apply themselves well to aerodynamics. And there's just different areas, and they're not the same people that are going to be diplomats, because mentioned on the Hearts of Iron 4 forum, I'm not good with math. I'm not a technical player, as you well know. So, you know, I gotta, you know, I ended up going through math for liberal arts majors in college to sort of get my university degree done. And yeah, I've gone through, you know, geometry and whatever, but I got to break out the pen and paper and figure this all out to do it right. But I'm sort of a, you know, a historian kind of thing. I might make a good diplomat or some sort of thing like that, but a lousy scientist. So, you know, and diplomatics and spies and researchers are all stuck into the same pool in Hearts of Iron 3, or come out of the same pool. So I've known very much that the German Navy seemed to be, one, very technically capable in its shipping, you know, building of ships, and rather well trained, and seemed to be rather well led for a rather small force. That one that doesn't have a long tradition of naval leaders, and it really doesn't. And I, you know, tried to find out who were some of the naval heroes in Germany, and they just sort of don't exist. And I mean comparable to like Admiral Nelson or something in England or whatever. They just don't exist. And so it was sort of a 19th century development, and through the 19th century mostly peaceful. I'm trying to think of a war that the German Navy really participated in that period. Not really. And so it wasn't until World War I and then II that the German Navy really got out. But they were rather rather good, but I think part of the reason they were rather good is they were rather small, especially in World War II. World War I is a bit bigger. And so that they were rather small of an organization. So you get the those that want to go into it, and you sort of pick and choose and get the best, where Britain is trying to do a mass navy, and particularly on its sailors levels. Britain has for a long time had conscription in its navy, going back however far you want to go with conscription, where they've had, like during the Napoleonic Wars, basically the whole Napoleonic War, it was a voluntary army. All the army that was going overseas, they were volunteers. They volunteered for the army. They got paid to go do it. No one forced all those soldiers to go fight Napoleon, who obviously was doing the first true levy en masse conscription. Long since been doing conscriptions, but levy en masse. And so they fought it out there. But to keep the British Navy going, they had to be conscripting sailors. And it was, theoretically, you couldn't go inland to conscript people. So a lot of people who didn't want to be in the Navy, young men, fled inland to Britain to look for jobs. And it's because theoretically again, they were only supposed to conscript sailors, but really they conscripted coastal people. And so they had such a mass navy, coming up until the end of World War II. And so they did a very good job, but they had a very long institutional memory and traditions for producing both good leadership and good just basic sailors. So it's different. So I've often wondered how Germany was able to maintain this sort of level of technical proficiency when we're needing to put so much into things like armor and aircraft, and be on the cutting edges of those as well. Well, again, like I say, it's not a zero-sum game. One of this was the STG Research Society and Institution. So we can, if you want to be stupid and not do it, you cannot do it, or we can, yes, it's going to eat into our supplies, but we will gain minor benefits, and there will be for the coming years similar sorts of events, as long as we're at peace, minor benefits to a bunch of areas. What I've done for 4 is just grant the naval experience points that you can then pick where you want to improve models of ships. That's how, instead of progressing through, improve submarines or whatever, through the tech tree, I've just given you naval experience earlier before the war starts, so that you can improve the models that you already have. So I sort of like that style better than this. It's a little more fluid, meaning a little less tied to some of the technical achievements I read and saw that they were sort of honoring people for doing in the different years. But I think it works out better. Okay, port strike penalties reduced. Naval strike. Okay, so we're only in 36 now, so we're going to continue that. As you can see, I'm not forgetting my Navy. I am delaying actual production on the major ships, which will mean they're going to be late. But I think because they are obviously a time-intensive situation, meaning I just can't assign more construction factories to get these things done faster. But we will have a Navy eventually. I just think, and we're gonna obviously we're playing it as this is hard with normal the rest of the thing. So I'm playing a little harder on a little more difficult level than I normally do. But normally I don't have any difficulty in what I'm able to build to take out Poland, France, the Low Countries, all in 1940. That's sort of what I'm planning on doing again. I don't planning starting the war early. There's just no point in starting at 39. Just because that's when it historically started. It was a mistake. They wanted just a war with Poland. Now, if I thought I could have a war with just Poland in 39, I'd do that. But so we're going to start in 40 and see where we go. Well, we've had more steel blueprints, and we still have full spies in there doing this. Okay, no longer receive money for fuel. Fine. Now this is, I think, the standard Black Ice Summer Olympics. Let the games begin. So we'll get that, no need. Because of the Spanish Civil War, because of Germany's help for the nationalists, Spain boycotted along with Peru and Colombia. Peru particularly was a leftist country at the time. So, okay, now this is a decision point. We've had a previous just informational event on the SDP. The SDP is the Sudetendeutsches Party. Conrad headline, there he is, pictured next to Hitler. If you want to go through the more or less peaceful event series that gives you some, or theoretically mostly all of Czechoslovakia, you need to start here. I hope I'm being... Should we support the German speaking? This will have long term, hopefully without being too, with being reasonably explicit but not being too much. You do this, and again, this is an overseas cost, or I mean a foreign cost that we're supporting, so it's a money cost. We can stay out of Czech affairs, so we want to do this. So this starts a long line of events, which there will be other. Now we have gone to 0, and because of the improved entertainment shows, we've got that. So more production. Okay, I think here we just need to no, I'm gonna stop that. Let's go for about 5. There we go. That still gives us a fair number of factories in production. Give them energy. Okay, how much? Okay, we're 162. Sure. We're getting back to where we need to be on, well, somewhat on officers, and it'll be a slow climb. Okay, submarine batteries have advanced. Great. So, which one? Periscope. Oh, okay, grayed out. Okay, so, says it allowed fire control. Submarines. Let's support submarines. There's 40 support. Well, we don't want to do support submarines fire control now. We will need to. Still just in August 36. So well, let's get some heavy bombers producing. Okay, we'll give you some energy. Okay, now this is a similar event to for supporting the SDP in Czechoslovakia. This is if you want to go down a similar road with the Swiss Nazis. I firmly believe, again it's just a belief, that the main reason Hitler did not do more in Switzerland is because of Wilhelm Gustloff's death. Not that he was afraid of Switzerland because of his death or whatever. It just, he had no one else around. him around the Nazi movement that focused on Switzerland. You look at somebody like Göring, whose first wife was Swedish when the what was it, the 1923 putsch failed and he was wounded. He wasn't arrested because he fled the scene wounded and smuggled himself out to Sweden, and instead of going to Landsberg prison, he spent his time in exile for a while in Sweden. So Göring has a Sweden connection. I have not explored it in events, but there is a whole lot of Nazi activity, both some of it German-oriented towards Sweden. A lot of it is domestically organized up, and I not looked into it detail, but I do believe Göring's attachment there is part of the reason for some of that, at least. So it's more of a situation that you have more than half the country, at least region-wise, is German-speaking, so Hitler would put it as German peoples that need to be part of Germany. He might have thought some of it was somewhat corrupted, but enough of it that, you know, he would want to get the control of it. With everything going on, he never did. I do believe the fighting reputation of Switzerland was still pretty good, and the idea that maybe they would have done a lot of resistance movements to him in Switzerland, guerrilla type warfare, because that was sort of known at the time that Switzerland planned some of that stuff. And remember, I've been talking about how Hitler never wanted to move too far ahead of what was acceptable to the German people as a whole. Now, how would it look if you invade Switzerland and your primary resistance people are Germans? It would look very, very badly. The reason he's going after the SDP is because they all want him in. You know, it's for the German population there. It's a popular thing. He's just going along with liberating oppressed Germans, as the Germans would view it. My Czech friends don't think that that's how I think, but that's their view of it. So they're just going along with, hey, this is, what we're freeing Germans. And similarly with Austria, they do a lot of work to get the Nazi support and get support for German takeover, and there's sort of a threatened invasion. But, and there was really, I think they had intelligence reports enough. Trust me, they had lots of intelligence reports on Austria, and I don't know that in detail for a fact, but I'm just sure that with all the, there was various SS units that were mostly in exile leading up to the Anschluss, but those SS units were operating inside Austria without being uniformed. So there were, training camps for SS, distinct SS units that they were, Austrian SS units. So being trained in Germany, going back as operatives operating inside of Austria as a very hardcore element. There was a much larger SA element that, we've talked earlier about how they were let out of prison. The SA, we'll see some pictures maybe, of some of the SA that they were parading around, maybe not this early in 36, just after getting out of prison, but in 37, shall we say, parading around in a pseudo uniform, meaning they're all wearing lederhosen shorts, all slightly different because they're just commercially bought, all wearing a white shirt, so that, again, they're all, bought in the regular store, and as opposed to bought at a local Nazi uniforms supply. So they're all slightly different. They're all wearing a sort of a Sam Brown belt. It's a little bit different. They're all wearing knee-high socks. So they all look sort of uniform in appearance, but they're not wearing a uniform, because the uniform, they were banned from doing so. So they were parading around in this sort of semi-camouflaged way, drumming up support. So there was this show that there was a lot of native Austrians for Germany, but also all of these organizations, these people, were regular jobs as postmen, government workers, factory workers, liable to be called up for, because we don't have the event here in this for 3, but it's now in 4, notifying that Austria starts finally again conscription for the first time after World War I. And so you're conscripting the SA guys into the army because everyone's called up for conscription. So they know, and I got to write reports and got to filter out just what the sentiment within the Austrian army is to fight a German invasion. So the Germans clearly know that. They know what's going on in Austria, because by that point, to some degree, all levels of Austrian society are infiltrated by the Nazis. Not that there aren't secrets, but just generally overall. So they know that. So that was the focus of it. Since Gustav is killed, there is no focus on Switzerland. This opens up that focus if you want to do it. You can choose to start this or not. We're going to. Now, because of my admittedly limited research, but also some talking with some Swiss that their grandfathers were alive during this period, and sort of feedback from what they thought, I don't have an event that gives you Switzerland like you get Austria or you get the Sudetenland and later Czechoslovakia. I didn't go that far. Now, what I am sort of working on for 4, and this is one thing that I'm unsatisfied with, and I need to do a little more modding, and I've just sort of been delaying it. But the basic events are done that are much more complete than the version you see here. They still, which you don't see but is in here, is sort of Italy's involvement with the Italian-speaking fascists. One thing now, I've also done more research into the French-speaking fascists going on in Switzerland. And so I'm just sort of describing what's going to happen in 4 is you'll have basically these events that Germany can decide to support the Nazis, which are fascists, because we've yet to get enough political parties going on there. France will have the opportunity to stabilize Switzerland if they so wish to, seeing they didn't do it historically, because basically the answer historically is 9, is no, at this point, because Gustav is dead. But if the Nazis were starting to put a lot of pressure or support for the Swiss Nazis, these are indigenous Swiss Nazis, that's why the swastikas are different here. The indigenous Swiss Nazis, putting support for them, I could see the French government lending aid to the, if you will, democratic or non-Nazi elements within Switzerland. So that's going on. If you're fascist France, you can decide to support the French-speaking fascists. Italy can decide to support the Italian-speaking fascists. Now, because of the mechanic with Hearts of Iron 4 and their states, I've come to really loathe the state mechanic. I wish it was purely provinces again. But Switzerland's divided into 2 states. I want to get it divided into 4. I know I can sort of mod it, but I want to sort of get it as standard 4 and have them just for everybody as 4. One would be a sort of French state over here. The other would be a well, it's not, because that's Davos. That would be German. So it would be sort of these like equivalent of 4 provinces here. That would be the Italian state, and then 2 German states, is sort of East and West German states. Get that done. And so not in this version, but in the next version, it would have a, if you will, a die roll, like those Weber live or die or whatever. If you decide to add support, does it have a big or little effect, if you will. If the idea is that if you do enough big effects and or we're on Switzerland, we'll be intelligence now here. Switzerland, combination of theoretically disrupting unity and support our party in Switzerland, which would be fascism for them. Anything you could dump in resources that way, and or from this, that would in essence cause riots, revolts, disquiet going on in Switzerland enough that would allow the peaceful in the sense of causing no wars in the Hearts of Iron 4 system, but theoretically be a multiple congruent revolutions, revolts, whatever you want to call it, chaos in Switzerland that would allow Germany to occupy the German-speaking areas, Italy to the Italian, and France to get the French-speaking ones. Generally speaking, the French player, if it was the AI, putting its support in wouldn't, if you're doing a heavy, both game mechanics and get a lot of good die rolls, if you will, you could still collapse it, though of course they can support their thing. So it becomes sort of a battle if you want to do it. And if you do really sort of push it heavily, it does become costly and you're unsure of success, because I am far from sure that that's how it would turn out, because I just don't like these, as I'm sure many of you are aware, sort of NFs in National Focus in Hearts of Iron 4. Click, click, click. You go down the tree and you get your result. Well, good. Hey, I've just recreated the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Bingo. Or, hey, I've just, Now, sometimes we know things that happened historically, like the breakup of Czechoslovakia. When I've gone in for that, you still have the NS to do it, the National Focus to do it there, but I tie it into events that may cause wars. So it's a little more unsure. And now it's, again, heavily weighted to come out the historical way, but there's a possibility of it not. Now, of course, you can just save before you go down the road too far and go back to your save, and if you want to get the result you want to get, you can do so. But if you want the tension there and to see how it goes. So we're going to support it partially just now. Also, what you do get out of doing this is if you support the various Nazi elements and you get control of Switzerland, generally presuming by invading it, but by any other means you get control of the territory, you will have cores in Switzerland, in certain parts of Switzerland, the German-speaking, or some of the more heavily German-speaking areas, so that you won't have revolt risks in occupying Switzerland, and which I've never had in my games because I've never invaded Switzerland other than once or twice, just purely for a test thingy. You will get at least one Waffen-SS, fictitious, named after Wilhelm Gustloff, Swiss SS Mountain Division that would be formed out of pro-German Swiss, pro-Nazi Swiss out of it. So, which you wouldn't get either the corps or the Waffen-SS unit if you didn't support the Nazis. Meaning, if it looked too blatantly as just, oh, Germany is just invading, they didn't lay the groundwork for German support. And that's sort of the key. Because if Germany didn't lay the groundwork for the SDP in Czechoslovakia, it would, even to the Germans locally, it wouldn't have looked very, it would look foreignish invasion. Not that they would be overly anti-German, I'm not saying that, but they wouldn't be as enthusiastically pro-German as they would have been. And similarly, if you hadn't laid the groundwork in Austria, it would have looked like simply a German empire, a Hohenzollern, a sort of foreign German invasion of traditionally different Austria. Maybe also I could throw in there a Protestant invasion of a Catholic Austria to the locals if you didn't lay the groundwork. You would give them money for fuel. No, thank you. So that's sort of my as I was saying earlier, is why things happened when and how they did. Why Switzerland was left alone in World War II? I think it was because of Wilhelm Gustloff being killed. It goes back to David Frankfurter assassinating him. I think to a large extent saved Switzerland from being in the war. Now that's just, again, I believe, notice I'm saying because I don't know, because we don't know had Wilhelm Gustloff died 3 days later in a car accident, or had maybe he would have shown to have been an incompetent leader and ended up being causing more harm to the National Socialist cause than good. We don't know what we don't know, kind of thing. So, it's similar, it's different for like when Reinhard Heydrich gets killed, because we have a long history and we know his skill sets and we know where he was doing well and where he wasn't and things like that. So that's a little bit better of a thing. Late war, would he have changed the outcome of the war? God, no. He wasn't no Superman or anything like that, no matter how much the Nazis wanted to make him out to be. But had he been around longer, he might have been more effective in anti-partisan operations or something, because he had those skills. We sort of know some of that stuff. Okay, twin engine airframe research advance. I think that's grayed out, but let's twin engine airframe. Nope, but we'll stop it. We're just going to 37. And we'll fuel tank. There we go. See, we've got all those down now to that. To a minor reinforcement capacity. Give supplies. Okay, we'll do that. And yes, we'll do that as well. So that's how I'm sort of looking at doing stuff. And in the great eventuality of things, and yes, we're talking for 4 instead of 3, I have a bunch of material on Sweden, and I want to cover that in much more depth. We do sort of look at Norway and Quisling a little bit more through SSIs, through the through what's already here, but I want to look at that more. Denmark, there was a little bit, but not too much that I know of, but that may change when research. I definitely want to look at the fascist movements and the Nazi movements in the Netherlands and Belgium. They're interesting, as well as France. So someday, folks, we're going to get there. It's going to be like these other chains of events. Okay, incendiary bombs, great. The Spanish Civil War, what to do? The fascist Spanish are abuse in the government. Okay, so you can gain a bunch of dissent for not caring about what happens in Spain, or we can put in a lot of effort, including a lot of supplies, more than we have currently because we've been spending on other things. Again, this event is happening without a check, but trust me, there's a bunch of events that check for supply reserves, so you need to keep those up if you want to have good things happen to you, for the most part at least. Because hey, we lose 5 in dissent now. Of course, we're at 0 in dissent right now, so but we don't gain 10 either. National unity, we're also up at 100%, so it would help there if we were in problem, but also helps us with the Spanish state. I am perfectly happy to get the Spanish state, as you well know. Oh, we need to yes, we will take Undersea Boat Flotilla Schwalzwede. I know I'm butchering the language, Germans. Just put up with it. I'm sure it hurts your ears. We are into September, but we're starting to... I got those. But I think we're going to go here. Okay. Notice we already have some of it done. That was from various texts or various events that have given us bonuses over time. I'm again making these episodes a little long because I'm hoping to get through the because we're going to get a lot more pausing and a lot more stuff once the war starts. Okay, their essay Führer, essay leader, is a magazine just sort of showing you the publications and elements of the essay. You know, like I said, I was watching somebody else sort of play play my mod, which was interesting to see their comments on it, and I don't know how much it comes through to them, people who haven't watched this, but yeah, I sort of look at the whole essay chain of events, giving all of these units that they're later going to be taken away and given weaker essay units, and took away the manpower early so that if because you got a lot of free units, and if you're going to go to war early, you're going to be without the manpower, but it'll later translate back and you'll get weaker units that will suck if you try to put them in, crush the Maginot Line with them, they'll suck. But if you want to sort of just station units, if you want to be a little more active than I do, and station units just to sort of be a counterbalance to the Soviets while you're crushing the West or something, just a static defense potential, they're useful for that. And of course they're very useful in anti-partisan type operations. That if you want to use them for those, you can use them that way. So they're useful. So that's why you had some manpower loss, but you have manpower gain, and so you end up with units that sort of suck. And because we're sort of red here, I'm not going to click on it. But by having that larger element of the army there, you're having to put in more resources into the civilian economies, the balances. As the army gets a little larger, you got to put more resources to balance that out in the mechanics. So if you didn't have all those SA units, you wouldn't have as big a commitment to needs for civil resources. So it all sort of balanced out. And I don't know how well some people think eventually it actually, TRE as a whole, ends up helping you more by 41 or something than it would earlier on. But so you're getting all of those costs with those benefits, plus you're getting, okay, yeah, it just, less than 200 supplies there, and you're getting increase in organization and popularity. So that will help you, but that's because we've also dinged you with a lot of other costs, I should say, in the game for having the essay. So they're both good and bad. You sort of have to take the good and the bad together. Is how I look at events like that. Any one event, you may go, oh, this is great, or oh, this is bad. But overall, it's a package deal. That's why a bunch of these things you don't have a choice on. A bunch you do, but also you don't have the choice on the SA because because of my research. It was such a fundamental part of Germany at this time. And again, I'll say it, and I know most of you who have been around for a long time know this. Third Reich events isn't about playing World War II in the sense of getting all the combat divisions and all the aircraft, the fighter aircraft and all the submarines out there and go fight the war. It's about playing the political, social, economic game as well as that. I mean, God, we have various elements within Third Reich events that deal with the war and units and combat and all that stuff too. But it's also about the realities of what the German leader, whether you want to put yourself in Hitler's shoes or his, Hess or Bormann, some sort of governmental leader, and needing to deal with all of the different elements of running a government. And that's what part of what it is also about. Part of it's about, which is I have a lot more material, and just takes time to put it in, and I've been advised by multiple players that they want all the events to have some sort of an effect, not just purely a cosmetic thing popping up. So I want you to see through Third Reich events
What were the posters like? Because they used posters to communicate even more so than they do today on walls and places around. You know, so what did you see walking around Germany? So I want to put up, and I've collected them, movie posters. You know, I can't really, I'd love to be able to show you clips of, you know, take, I don't know, 20 of the most significant movies in Germany from 1936 to 1945 and show you, you know, 5-second clips of them at some point during the game. You know, 20 sounds like a lot, but try to space them out over the 10-year period. You know, that would be two 5-second movie clips per year. You know, I'd love to do that, but I can't do that. So I can show you the movie posters, which you would have seen out in front of the theaters. You know, so I want to show you that. I want to show you the magazines, the periodicals, what you would have seen on the newsstands. You know, to give you that experience of what it was like to be alive. You know, again, part of it is how to manage this as a government kind of thing, all the different, you know, CBAD, PORA for holiday camps. Do we build it or not? That's part of it, but it's also, what does the guy on the street see? He sees an NSKK guy out there directing traffic or whatever. You know, I'm trying to give you the experience of what it was like to be alive at this period, and so that's why I want to include things, and I have, and I'm going to do more so as time goes on, magazines, posters, and other things that I can show you visually of what it was like to be alive then. Okay, support the DKKB, the Deutsches Colonial Kriegersbund. Again, as I've said before, this was the one World War I veterans organization that got to remain separate from the standard one. It was technically under it, but it was run separately. We can support it or not to support it. If you support it, which we're going to do, it will allow you to eventually get the cores and some free units if we take this territory down here eventually. But it's predicated on taking that territory. Okay, periscope. Submarine periscopes have advanced. We'll good. Okay, well, we're going to end the episode here. I'm again, like I say, sort of going through, get these things done. I want to thank you all for watching the videos. I want to thank you for liking the videos. And again, if you can tell a friend, an enemy, I don't know, someone to help grow the channel, I would really appreciate it. It really helps. Thanks so much if you can do any of that. And I know a few of you do. I saw something Django posted a while ago. Thanks for the support. I really do appreciate that. And other venues, it really does help. And of course, please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas. Love hearing from you. If I missed something or anything, please help correct it. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.